Hello YouTube! Today on the Naughty Librarian I am doing my official guide to Tessa Dare. This has been a video that has been much requested from me over the years, and I'm doing it now. It's Smutty September. The time has come. The #1 comment I get from subscribers if I ever meet you in person or they get messaged is always like, oh my gosh, I started reading Tessa Dare because of you. Which I am totally okay with. If that is my legacy, I'm fine. Good. But the thing is, I really haven't talked about Tessa Dare on this channel in quite a while because Tessa Dare has not put out a book in 2020. There was supposed to be a book in 2020, but it got delayed to 2021, and like, my romance nerd heart is still a little broken about it, but I'm like, I'm okay, because I'm still gonna read it. There's no way in hell I'm not gonna read it. I'm just have to wait longer. But that being said, there is a wide back catalog of Tessa Dare delights from which you can choose your favorites to read. And I figured, hey, let's go over them and I will tell you which ones are my favorites from each of her individual series of books. I think we'll start here. This is the longest series and probably the most well-known series by Tessa Dare, which is Spindle Cove. And it has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books and 3 novellas. So there's a lot of information going on here. Basic idea of this world is that there's this small kind of coastal town in, England, and it's called Spindle Cove. And it's a seaside town, so the reputation is that, young women who are unique is a nice way of putting it, or somehow don't fit in very well, get sent there because they think the ocean air will do them good. But really it's just a community of women of misfits and, a bunch of dudes who live there as well who are cool with it. And so it actually has the unofficial moniker of Spinster Cove. But, ooh, it's just like delightful, like quirky women in this town that like fully vibes with that. And I'm like, yes, give me all the feminism of Regency England. So that's like the general plot. That's the general setting and setup for all of this series. So there's that. If that like setting and concept intrigues you, I definitely recommend trying out the series. Now, since I have read all these books and I feel like I'm a bit of an expert, I'm going to go over my favorites and least favorites of the series. My favorites have to be A Week to Be Wicked and Any Duchess Will Do. These are fantastic, hilarious, laugh out loud funny, very steamy, great concepts. So Week to Be Wicked, it is Minerva and Colin. Minerva is a woman who wants to be a paleontologist, and she finds a fossil, which is like kind of a new thing in this era. Like they don't know a lot about dinosaurs and fossils yet, so it's a new thing. And then Colin is like a rake about town. So it's nerd girl and like rake boy. And she's like, Colin, listen, you gotta get me to Scotland so I can speak at this like paleontologist convention. And he's like, what? Okay. And then he ends up doing it because there's reasons. And so there's these two people, an odd couple, on a road trip from hell to get to Scotland. And many misadventures happen along the way. Some of them sexy, some of them unsexy, but it's just like all kinds of funny stuff. And oh, I just love it. I love the relationship. I do love a good nerd girl. So yes, love it. Chef's kiss, it's great. Also, I absolutely love Any Duchess Will Do. It's so funny. It's kind of a My Fair Lady situation, and I love it intensely. It's Griffin and Pauline. Griffin's a duke, and his mom is very uppity with him, saying, you got to marry a lady. And he's like, fine, I'll go in this bar and pick a lady and I'll marry them. And the mom's like, fine. So he goes into the bar and he's just like, oh, I'm gonna pick the worst one here. Enter Pauline. Kind of a working girl. Not a working girl in that sense of the word. She is a girl with a job. She works at the bar. She is very practical in her approach. She would have like big, she's like the Eliza Doolittle here. She is a Cockney accent kind of person. And he's just like, that one. What do you say, Mom? Because he's trying to be a dick, and the mom's like, fine, bring her over. And he's like, So it kind of backfires against him. And Pauline is basically like, I need money for my family because my dad's a prick. And the mom's like, hey, I'll give you money, but you gotta do Duchess lessons, and if you fail, you don't have to go marry him, but I'll still give you money. And she's like, all right. And so Duchess lessons begin, and then they kind of get closer and closer to each other, and it's just like culture clash where he's always been really, really rich and she's always been very, very working class, and then like their personalities is kind of like not understanding the other, but like also like really genuinely caring about the other person. So it's kind of a nice like build up to their relationship, and it's so good. I love Pauline. She's very funny. She's just very practical about things. And you know what? She does make a very good Duchess in the end. She's very practical and smart, and she's very good at taking care of things, which is what you kind of need in a Duchess. So yes, I genuinely enjoy this. There's also times in here where it's very sad. There's very sad moments in Griffin's past. Ooh. So it's got the laughs, it's got the cries, it's got everything. I love it so much. It's very, very good. Now for my least favorites of this series. One of them's a novella, one of them's a full-length book. So this novella, Once Upon a Winter's Eve, it's not bad. I mean, it's a novella, so you have to expect, you know, things are going to be a bit skimpy. There's not enough time to develop a story, and I think this really hinders the book because some novellas work. You don't need a lot of time to develop that story. It just works. This one doesn't. This one really, really, really would have benefited from having being a full-length story. So this is Violet, and I honestly can't remember the male lead's name. He is a spy kind of situation, and they capture him in Spindle Cove. He washed up on shore, and he's speaking French, and England and France have been at war for a while, so they're like, I don't know about this guy. But there's like this big secret past with Violet and him, and like he's been spying for the British in France. Sorry, spoiler. But so they have this big past, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna break you out of prison, and then like romance and stuff. But I'm like, they need so much more time to develop the story because their past isn't good. Like he left her, and in this very like bad way. I think he compromised her essentially, and then took off, and she's like, well, fuck. And now she's in Spindle Cove, and then he comes back, and she's like, I hate you. And then eventually they get together. When you have a setup like that with so much animosity in their past, you can't clear that up in this amount of pages. You need a whole book. There's so much more they could have done with like plot and intrigue and spying and them growing back towards each other. Because I don't think he ever stopped loving her, but she totally stopped loving him. So they needed more time. That's why it doesn't work. It could have been really good if it was longer, but this is so short that it just abbreviates too much and the story suffers. On the opposite side of the spectrum, A Lady by Midnight, I feel would have worked a lot better as a novella than a full-length book. It's just not good as a full-length. I was really into both these characters. This is Kate and Samuel. They had been hinted at in all the previous books of this series so far, so I was like, oh, they're getting their own story. This is going to be great. And then it just ended up being very dull. Like, so dull that I was like, why isn't this a full-length book? You had the one about the spies that was short, and then this one's about nothing, and it's very long. This one could have actually been better if it was shorter. So if you just switch the lengths in those two books, I think this would have been a perfect series. But yeah, this one is just is lackluster. It's not so much fun. Although it does give me Kate's long-last family, because she was kind of like orphaned, and then she knew that she had family somewhere, and then they find her, and like her family's dope. I loved them. I'd want to see a spin-off with their family. They're great, but it's just so much of nothing going on for so much of the book that I was like really disappointed in it, because I would like anticipating these characters for so long that when I got them and nothing happened, I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. So yeah, this one could have been shorter, and I think it would have been better. The next series that came after Spindle Cove is the Castles Ever After series. I personally like the series even better than Spindle Cove. It's shorter, it's only 4 books, and this last book is actually a crossover. So I had it in the Spindle Cove section, it's also in the Castles Ever After section, because it's a character from Castles and a character from Spindle Cove, they get together. So both these series happen in the same world as each other. Awesome. So yeah, since there's only 4 books, I feel like I should just go over all of them. There's only 4. Before I do that though, general idea behind this series is that there's these 4 castles that this guy owned, and he was like a godfather or a relation to all of these women, and when he died he gifted them all a castle. So it's these women going to this castle and like starting a new life or finding a new love, and it's just like, yeah, you inherit a castle and then there's a cool story afterward. Like, that's a great premise to a series. Book 1, Romancing the Duke. Honestly, it's one of my all-time fave Tessa Dare books. It's so good. This is Izzy and Ransom. Ransom is a duke who lives at this decrepit castle. And then Izzy shows up one day and she's like, I own this castle. And he's like, I live in this castle. No, you don't. But it turns out his dad like gambled it away, so this guy who died owned it and he gave it to Izzy, so technically it's Izzy's castle. She's like, well, I'll let you live here since it's mine. Izzy is actually a novelist, although a secret novelist, because her father basically took the credit for all of her work. And it was like a very much, her father, quote unquote, was like he wrote like the Harry Potter series of his time. And it was very popular, and Izzy was a character in it. So there's all these people who like LARP as characters from the book. LARP is live action role play, in case that term does not go over with certain people. But people role play as characters from the story and like follow Izzy around and everything, and they're way into it. And so you have all these people LARPing at her castle now, and Ransom is just like, what is happening? What is happening? So Ransom is a grumpy duke, and he has also been blinded in a dueling accident. So he has his own problems going on, and so is Izzy and Ransom kind of teaming up and helping each other out and stuff and growing closer together, and it's really adorable, and there's LARPing. Like, I love it. It's so good. My least favorite of this series is Say Yes to the Marquess. It's not very exciting, I would say, especially after book 1, which is like laugh out loud hilarious, and you come to this one and you're like, This is Cleo and Rafe. Cleo is this woman who wants to run a brewery. She inherits this castle. She's like, it's brewery time. And she's been engaged to this guy named Pierce for a very long time, and Pierce has never been around. But Rafe, his brother, has. Rafe is in love with his brother's betrothed. So, drama. And honestly, I could go on and on about what this story is actually about, but like, it's really not that interesting. It's just like a woman trying to run a brewery. And then Rafe being like, but you're engaged to my brother. And she's like, your brother ain't here, homie. And he's just like, oh, I'm conflicted. And she's like, oh my gosh, just kiss her. So yeah, this one's a bit frustrating, and it's not my favorite of the series. And then you have the fan favorite Tessa Dare book, When a Scot Ties the Knot. Really, total fan favorite. Everyone who has read this book has loved it. I have not met a single person who hasn't loved it. Fan favorite characters here. So it's Madeline and Logan. Madeline is kind of a shy naturalist. She wants to just study nature and be a scientist, but everyone's like, you gotta get married. And she's like, I am engaged. And she like just invents a fake boyfriend who's Scottish and in the army. So she writes letters to Captain Mackenzie and mails them. She's like, oh, Captain Mackenzie's not real. They're just gonna go in the mail and like get lost. And turns out, nope. Captain Mackenzie was a real person, and he kept getting all these letters from this lady saying, hey, you're my fiance. And he's just like, what? But the problem was all the guys in his like garrison got really excited because they liked him a lot, and they're like, oh my gosh, you have a fiance? And they were all rooting for this relationship, and he didn't have the heart to tell him it was fake, so he has to pretend he's engaged to this lady he's never met, which means he can't get with any other women the entire time, so he's just been forced celibate by this woman. So he's just like, lady! He is understandably frustrated, and eventually comes time, Madeline inherits this castle in Scotland, and what did you know, the person who shows up on her doorstep is the fictional Captain Mackenzie, and he's like, no, I'm a real person, and she's like, oh no, and then romance. So it's an excellent premise to a series. It's so cute and so adorable, steamy, it's very funny, it's a fan favorite. I do recommend reading it. These are all fairly episodic, so you can just read it on its own without reading anything else in the series if that's what you choose, and you will be just fine. There's nothing connecting any of the other books. You can just read it. Last up, our crossover book is Do You Want to Start a Scandal? And I actually really enjoy this book. I describe it as grown-up Nancy Drew and James Bond do it, which surprisingly accurate. So we're going back to that guy Pierce, who was engaged to Cleo for like a long time and was never around. Turns out he's a spy a la James Bond, like super spy. And then you have Charlotte, who is from Spindle Cove. She is kind of a sleuthy girl. She likes to solve mysteries. And then they get into this situation where now they have a mystery to solve together, and there's intrigue, and it's actually really, really funny and kind of a comedy of errors, and it's adorable, and I love it. So yes, if James Bond and grown-up Nancy Drew getting together intrigues you, I definitely recommend this one. Next series by Tessa Dare is actually my favorite series from Tessa Dare, which is the Girl Meets Duke series. I love it so much. Basic premise here is that there's this group of female friends, and they're kind of all misfits, and they all kind of are friends, and they go off and meet their respective matches. So it's this friend group you're seeing get together one by one. And it's cute. I mean, it's very much an obvious, you know, episodic rom-com series. There's a lot of things like that where it's like a big friend group and they all get matched off. But it's great. I love it so much. These are some of my favorite all-time characters. This is the book that started my entire Tessa Dare addiction, which is The Duchess Deal. This is the first one I read, and it blew my mind with how much I effing liked it. I didn't know I liked historical romance until I read this book. Like, it started a journey for me, so this is like a big deal. And this is Ash and Emma. Ash is a duke, and he was wounded in battle. He was in the army, and so he's got like a burnt face. Like, part of his face is burnt. So he's like, I'm a monster. And then he's just like, I need someone to marry someone and produce an heir. And in comes Emma, and he's just like, married? And like, Emma accepts her reasons. And it's a really, really cute romance of them trying to get to know each other, and him being like, oh, like, I'm burnt, no one will like me. And she's like, it's not that fucking bad. And she's like, it's horrible. So she has to like build up his self-esteem a bit. And also Emma is just like really like hearty and practical, and she wants to help other women. She's a great heroine. I love her to bits. And also there's like a slight Batman storyline in this. Hear me out. Ash secretly at night fights crime as a masked vigilante. I bet you weren't expecting that, and it happens, and it's adorable, and there's like this kid who thinks he's Robin, and I love it so much. It's so good. I recommend highly. It's my favorite Tessa Dare book. The sequel to this is The Governess Game, and again, very, very cute. I would say this is very similar to A Week to Be Wicked that I just spoke about, so again, it's a premise that I really like. This is Alexandra and Chase. Alexandra is kind of a shy governess. She wants to teach. And Chase is kind of a devil-may-care Marquess, I believe. And he has now become he has two wards now. I think they're like these little girl parts of his family that he's now taking care of. He has two wards, and he's just like, I am like a 20-something guy who's bad about town, and I have to take care of these two little girls, and I don't know what to do. So there's that whole cute situation, and then comes Alexandra. He needs a governess. They kind of like sparks fly. And these two little girls are like creepy Wednesday Addams children. They are obsessed with murder and death. So creepy little kids who are surprisingly very fun. And then you have, you know, Alexandra and Chase, kind of odd pairing situation, nerd girl, libertine boy, and they work together. So it's very cute. I recommend. Next friend to get her happy ending is the Wallflower Wager, and this is about Penny. And Penny is like the bleeding heart vegetarian of the group, literally. She's a vegetarian in the Regency era, so she's inventing vegetarian foods, essentially. And then this guy moves in next door named Gabriel. He is kind of a self-made man. He made his money in business, and he's like, hey, I want to buy your house and sell it because it's how I make money, but your house is full of crazy animals. She has an otter, a giant like Highland steer, like she has all these crazy animals at her house because she rescues them. And he's just like, I can't sell a fucking house when you have like cows in your yard in the middle of the city, lady. And she's like, I'm not getting rid of them, and then like fights. But he actually kind of thinks she's cute and respects her, and then like she actually thinks he's handsome and like good at stuff, and they kind of get together from there. However, I do want to point out a trigger warning for this because it does deal with childhood sexual abuse. And from like the light fluffy cover, you would not expect that, so just be aware going in, there is discussion of that. But it's so cute and so fun and like delightful. And me as a vegetarian, I'm like, I I like connect with Penny quite a bit. So I really love this one. It kind of brings back the characters from the other series with Gabriel, so now you have like a bromance growing and then the female friendships, and I love it. It's like everybody getting together in this book, and it's so cute. Love. There is one more book of this series coming out. It was supposed to come out in 2020, it got pushed to 2021, and that is The Bride Bet. This is the last single friend of this friend group, and she has basically a fiance that she never told anybody about because it was kind of a ultimatum fiance where she's like, okay, if we both reach this age and we're not married, we'll just marry each other. And she thought it was a joke, but he's like, no, it's not a joke, like, let's go get married. And she's like, ah! So, I don't know. That friend is very kind of scientific. She's a science person. She's like very scholarly, so she's kind of very reserved. And seeing her put in a wacky situation might actually be very, very fun. So I am excited. Coming 2021 now. So I just need it in my life. It's been pre-ordered. It's gonna be pre-ordered for over a year by the time it comes out. I just want it in my soul. I want it now. But it's coming. Now, this is an early Tessa Dare trilogy. Sadly, I only have the first book in physical form, and it's actually the only series from her I have not read yet. So this one should get done. I need to read this already, but it's kind of her earlier works, which I'll get into in a little bit, but they make me nervous because when Tessa Dare hit Spindle Cove, took off. Like, the earlier works, they're a bit rough, if I'm being honest. So this one kind of makes me a little nervous. I can't remember the name of this series. I think it's something with gamble in it. It's like a gamble series, but it's basically, you know, rogues and like nice ladies getting together. So I can't really speak much about this series because it's the only one I haven't read yet, and I should just do that. Why haven't I done it? It's just like I'm nervous about it because what if I don't like it, you know? But so I have this one in physical form, and that is One Dance with a Duke. So maybe I'll just like get this done this year. So this last series by Tessa Dare, this is actually the debut series. Okay, so, like, I hate to say something by Tessa Dare is bad, but like, oh, this series is bad. I'm just gonna say, like, if this is the first series I read by Tessa Dare, I probably wouldn't have read all those other books. Thank goodness I started with her later works. Oh, these ones are not good. Sorry, spoiler alert, they're bad. This is the WANTON DAIRYMAIDS series, which doesn't actually have DAIRYMAIDS in it at all. It's just like a series of books, like romance novels of that era, that these ladies have all read, and they all kind of know each other through friends or acquaintances, and they've all read this like WANTON DAIRYMAIDS book, and it's like very scandalous, and that's like kind of how these ladies get into scandals. I have read the first 2 books of the series. This last book, honestly, I can't make myself do it because I think it's gonna be like a dumpster fire. Like, it's gonna be real bad, and I don't want to sour Tessa Dare's name by reading it. That's how I feel. The beginning of the series, Goddess of the Hunt, it's not terrible. Like, it's alright. It's not good. I wouldn't say it's good. I would say it's a solid 2.5 stars. Like, it has its moments, but it's kind of bad. It's not good. Who is this? This is Lucy and Jeremy, and Lucy is just delusional, like grand delusions here, and it's just like, I don't like it. It's not terrible, but it's not good. So it's like, if you have to read one book of the series, this one's probably your best bet because at least it's not terrible. However, then you move on to Surrender of a Siren, the 2nd book of the series, which has an amazing setup. Oh my gosh, this could have been incredible. So you have Sophia, she's running away from a marriage she doesn't want to be in, and she escapes onto a pirate ship with this guy named Gray, who's a literal, like, privateer. So you're like, oh my gosh, pirate adventure? Yes! And they made it so bad. It's so bad, it made my worst books of a year list, and that's saying something, because I love Tessa Dare, but this one is, oh, it has such a great premise, and it just went downhill at every turn. So many bad choices. It's really bad. I was like, did Tessa Dare rate this? Like, I kept wondering because it's so bad. And honestly, I don't feel horrible saying that because I have seen tweets from Tessa Dare herself saying, yeah, that's not my best work. So even she doesn't think it's very good. And it's like, oh no, like, girl, who hurt you? Like, this is bad. I'm not even gonna get into how bad it is. I have other videos on my channel where I have reviewed it, but oh boy, it is a hot mess of a book. You think Sophia's gonna be really cool. She just literally ran away to a pirate ship. And like, she's the dumbest person I've ever met in my life. And Gray's a piece of shit too. So it's just like two shitty people doing stuff. And I'm like, I don't even care. There's not even cool pirate stuff. Meh. Meh. And then this book comes along. And this is the last book of that trilogy, and honestly, I have heard it referred to as the worst book of the trilogy, and I'm like, oh man, it's worse than Siren? This is Lady of Persuasion, and I have heard horrendous things about it, to the point where I'm just like, I don't want to read it because I'm scared. It's gonna be so bad. It's this woman named Isabel, and she's very much like, oh, I'm a proper lady, and proper ladies don't enjoy anything. And she's just basically the worst stick in the mud who's ever been stuck in the mud. And I'm gonna hate her. I just know it in my soul. Like, I'm just gonna hate this lady, and I'm like, I don't want to ruin Tessa Dare for myself, so I'm just not gonna read it. But yeah, WANTON DAIRYMAIDS is not her best work. Let's just be real. Okay, so that was kind of a grand Tessa Dare retrospective. You guys have been asking for this video. I have made the video. So, yeah, I've told you my favorites, my least favorites, all the series you can choose from. They're all great, except for this WANTON DAIRYMAIDS series. It's not good, let's be real. But the Spindle Cove, Castles Ever After, and Girl Meets Duke, all excellent series. You will have a great time with it. Even the bad books of those series aren't that bad. They're just not as good as the others. Let me know in the comments down below, are you a Tessa Dare fan? I'm assuming you are because you're here on my channel. But if you are, what are some of your favorite Tessa Dares or least favorite Tessa Dare books? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, if you are interested in picking up Tessa Dare for the first time, or I talked about a book you haven't read yet, there are links in the description down below if you want to purchase them. I have made it easy to find. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like, and if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye.